Hello and welcome back. I hope everybody had a great holiday break. One thing I want to mention before we get into talking about your responses to the contact section and talking about the next assignment for the Indigenous Science and Sustainability section is a couple links I put up on D2L. These are completely optional, but I think they might be of interest. There are two short audio podcast by a professor named Amy Sturgis. Now, one of the audio podcast is her short review of the anthology Walking the Clouds. And another one is from about a year ago, before the anthology, when she did a segment on Indigenous writers doing science fiction. So she had already talked about that. She was really excited, as she mentions in the later podcast, to see the Walking the Clouds anthology come out. She is a regular contributor to a podcast that I recommend called Starship Sofa, and it's just fun to listen to. It's a lot of science fiction. I haven't really heard any Indigenous science fiction being read on there yet, but Amy Sturgis has talked about it. So if you're interested, check those out. So a couple notable points that I wanted to bring up about your post, about your Dropbox assignments for the contact section. You all did a great job. A few of you mentioned this connection between land and air. The metaphor of air being a resource or the reason for colonization in Carter Rivard's poem. And I think it's a very important point. I think I really enjoy Rivard's poem, and I think Dylan should have included that poem in the contact section of the anthology. I'm not sure if she was aware of the poem or unaware, or if she had problems with the publisher. Rivard originally published that in a book, as I think I scribbled on the copy, called Ponca War Dances. The other point that I thought was important is this type of uncertainty or cautiousness when encountering another culture that we can see in both Men on the Moon and refugees. So great job on the contact section of the Walking the Clouds anthology. And many of you did write about the refugees. So I think that particular story struck me as well. If you're interested in reading the full story, it can be, it is published in its full length in an anthology of post-colonial speculative fiction called So Long Been Dreaming. I don't think that's mentioned in the anthology or in the credits. I think Dylan might have gotten that directly from Selu Amberston. But that anthology does carry that, plus some other interesting stuff. So, excuse me here. One thing that I think is important mentioning at this point is kind of some of the terminology about genre that Dylan uses, right? Because we get a lot of different things. We have Indigenous science fiction, right? She uses that. That's on the title. We also have Indigenous futurisms that she uses and kind of borrows from the term Afrofuturisms, right? She kind of, I think, uses these synonymously. But she does mention SF, capital S, capital F. And what she means by that, or she could possibly mean by that, is kind of a broader look at science fiction, or the genre that science fiction is in, right? So it could be speculative fiction, it could be science fiction. A lot of writers and critics of science fiction will use SF when they're talking about the genre more broadly, if they can't necessarily say that it's strictly science fiction, right? It might be fantasy or another type of speculative fiction. So I think it's important to pay attention to those categories, but I think there are times where she's using some of those synonymously. So for our next assignment, we're going to be reading the Indigenous Science and Sustainability section of Walking the Clouds, which is page 99 to 140. And I'm going to open it up a bit here. I've been giving you some pretty clear instructions about what I'm looking for both the discussion board post and Dropbox posts. But I want to open it up and give you guys some more control over what you're writing about. And so I'm going to ask that you post about anything you want to post about, whether you think it's interesting or important. But I'll only want you to follow 3 guidelines for the post in this next discussion board post, right? So make sure that your post is substantial, right? If you make a point, make sure to elaborate on that point and perhaps give us the implications of that point, or how, explain it in more detail so we get what you're talking about. Make sure to give specific details from the story you're talking about to back up your point as well, right? We can only have a meaningful conversation about literature if we pay close attention to the details and how we interpret those details. And the last thing that I'm asking you to do for this post is to make sure to respond to 2 other posts, right? By either adding to the analysis or, showing another take on it. So I'm going to open this discussion board up to whatever you guys want to do for this next section, as long as you follow those 3 guidelines. All right, well, I hope you guys are ready to get back into it. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to shoot me an email. All right, I'll see you all next time.